Good morning. Thanks so much for inviting me to be here. I'm really grateful to be here. My name is Lark, Doolan. I'm the superintendent, principal, special ed director, and whatever else they need to have done at Peninsula Union School District. It's one of the beauties of a small school. Check out our website. We just redid it, peninsulaunion.org. We spent a lot of time kind of re-envisioning our school research, and our website really reflects that. So I'm going to introduce myself a little bit, kind of cover that. We're going to talk about our current demographics of our school, kind of what our population looks like. We're going to talk about the opportunity of learning in a small school environment. And I'm going to talk a little about our annual themes. So our school has some really specific values that's maybe unlike other schools in Humboldt County in some ways. So I'll talk a little about what makes us unique. And then at the very end, I'm going to make a little time for question and answer. And I go until 4. Great-ish. Got it. Okay. Hello. I'm Lark Doolan. That's my email address if you need to find me. It's also on the website. A little bit about me. I grew up in Berkeley, California. I came into special education with a passion for full inclusion. So having students with moderate severe disabilities in a general ed classroom being served with their peers. I believe that it's immoral to segregate kids unless you have a really good reason. And a lot of times there's ways to make it work that people don't realize. So there's an old model of special ed where kids who are different get put in a separate classroom or in a separate school. And that's not how I was raised. I was raised in inclusive schools where I had the opportunity to be a friend and a mentor and a helper to classmates who had more substantial disabilities than me. It made a big difference for me in my life. And I learned a lot. So I learned all the stuff I would normally learn. And I also learned a lot about diversity and social justice. And now if I'm in a grocery store and someone is having a seizure, and their brother is there monitoring them and tell them they're safe, I'm not all freaked out because I'm used to it, right? Like I'm used to neurodiversity. When I meet someone with autism in the world, I have a skill set for interacting with that. Because I was raised in a diverse and inclusive school. And I came into education realizing that a lot of people didn't have that in their education. A lot of people grew up not really knowing people with disabilities and not realizing how much friendships with people with disabilities can enhance our lives. So that's part of my passion and part of how I came into education. And so when I got hired at Peninsula School, I was the special ed teacher, the principal, and the superintendent. And then I've gradually transitioned to just doing the administrative side of that. In addition to this, I also work part-time with the Rotary clinic system. I'm the administrator for their transgender health navigator system, and I run the youth group for gender equality. Okay, so a little bit about my school's demographics. We have around 35 to 40 students in our entire district, kindergarten through 8th grade. So we have 3 multi-age classrooms. So our kindergartner, 1st grade, 2nd grade classroom has about 12 students in it. Our 3rd, 4th, 5th grade has about 12 students in it, and our middle school has about 14 students in it. And so students have teachers for 3 years. And it's this incredible thing to have the same student for 3 years and the same teacher for 3 years. Because at the beginning of the year, you don't have that first month where you're just getting to know each other, figuring out how the kid learns. We don't have that kind of lag moment because we have the same students for a few years, so we can go really deep. We really know how that student learns. And then when they pass on to the next teacher, the teachers have been seeing them for so many years, they already know so much about them. So there's this real opportunity to know the students for the whole people that they are and the nuances of their story with small class sizes like that. Another thing I want to mention about our school, so out in Samoa, I don't know if you've spent much time in Samoa recently, but there's a lot of poverty in our community. So in schools we use this language called unduplicated, which refers to English language learners, people with disabilities, people who are living in poverty. For our school, over 90% of our students live below the poverty line. So as a school district, it's one of the things that we're really being mindful of, is making sure we're meeting the base math block needs for our students. So some examples of what that looks like at our school. We serve breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack at no charge to any families. We just include that. We also provide backpacks of food on Friday, food that kids can make for themselves. So like sandwiches, simple things so that kids are able to be fed over the weekend. Samoa and Fairhaven, 2 of the communities we serve, are both food deserts. So we have the Samoa Cookhouse, but most families can't afford to eat there. And there is no other place to get food. We also have no public transportation. So if you're a family where gas money is hard to come by, or where you don't have a vehicle, there isn't a grocery store that's available. So we do our best to meet those types of needs at our school. It's not uncommon for me to do a store run to buy some underwear for a kid, some clothing for a kid, socks. In the wintertime, we give kids jackets. We provide alt shoes for some of our students. So we really work on supporting our students in those ways so that they can be undistracted. Because when you are really cold, it's hard to work. So it's just a little bit about our demographics. But I want to talk a little bit about the opportunities of being in a small school. Because sometimes people are like, oh, multi-grade classrooms, that must be so hard. And yeah, it's hard, but you know what? We're all professional educators, and having 12 kids in your class isn't so bad, you know? And so there's always opportunities. So a few opportunities. Here's an example. We have a student who loves bugs and insects. I'm always happy to tell them, please don't catch snakes on campus. Yes, you know that's not a poisonous snake, but a little kid sees you doing that, they think it's okay. You might not be able to tell the difference, so when you're at school, please don't catch snakes. We love bugs and insects, and there was a bird flying over our school that dropped a little crab-like bug thing. And so we brought it to him, and we're like, what's this? And he told us all about it, where they live, what their life cycle is like, that it wasn't going to survive long that far from the ocean, that a bird had probably picked it up at the beach, which is so close to our school. We can walk there on walking field trips. We can hear the ocean and hear the sea lions. It's amazing out there. It's a really magical place. Anyway, so we launched an entire rescue mission for this bug, and this kid was in charge of that entire experience. And then I called up my friend Tony, who writes the Humbug column for the local newspaper. And I say, hey, we have a kid who really likes bugs. You know, you're a bug specialist. Do you want to come and hang out with this kid? And so Tony comes to our school occasionally and walks around and does bug hunts with this kid and a friend of his who has disabilities. We're building relationships across abilities, and they're getting to have this really unique learning experience in a one-to-one or two-to-one model with a local expert. And we know our kids so well that we're able to identify, oh, this kid really is an outdoor learner. Let's hook up with Big Lagoon School and do kayaking and paddleboarding and have this kid do outdoor social-emotional resiliency learning, because that's going to meet his needs. And that's one of the really cool things about small schools. We can do that. Another example was last year with the amazing volunteer support of Crystal. We went to China with our 8th graders. So a lot of our students don't get to leave the peninsula very often. And so we're like, well, let's do a field trip. And there's a great field for going to China. So we took our 8th graders to China on their trip. And it was an incredible life-changing experience, I think, for most, if not everyone who came. So here's a couple pictures of us there in Shanghai. So here we are in a shopping district in Shanghai, checking out the incredible architecture. This was our last full day of the trip. And then a few days before that, with one of our tour guides, Tom, also in Shanghai. That's our 8th grade class. And our amazing chaperones who volunteer their time and effort to join us. If you go on my Facebook, it's a public photo album. Lark Doolan is my name, and on my Lark Doolan Facebook account, there's an album of about 200 pictures of our trip, and it was phenomenal. In the evening, we sat around reading Chinese poetry, reading the Tao Te Ching and talking about our days. We went to all sorts of places. I mean, the tea plantations, the Great Wall of China. It was a mind-blowing experience. And I knew it was going to be an amazing trip when we drove down to the San Francisco airport, and one of the students was freaking out because she saw an escalator. And I realized, wow, we don't have any escalators in Humboldt County. And she's like, when I was 4 years old, I saw an escalator once, and she was afraid. She was afraid of the escalators. When she was four years old, she got her flip-flops stuck, and those things can be scary and dangerous. And 3 days later in Beijing, she was going up and down an escalator for fun. And I got to see that student in particular have a fear and overcome it, and have a fear and overcome it every day for the whole trip. There was another student who, we arrived in China, we're walking around Beijing, we were on our way to the Temple of Heaven, which is a Chinese tourism spot where we didn't see any other Westerners. We're walking down the street, and he says, Principal Doolan, when are we going to see the real China? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, somewhere where I don't recognize any of the restaurants, and all the signs are in Chinese, not English and Chinese, and I don't see other Westerners, and the people on the mopeds are not wearing helmets. I looked around and said, okay, look around. Do you recognize any restaurants? And he's like, I don't recognize any of these restaurants. They're all Chinese restaurants. And I said, do you see any other Westerners? He's like, we're the only Westerners I see. I said, look at the signs. What language are they in? They're all in Chinese. I was like, well, look at the people on the mopeds. Are they wearing helmets? He goes, oh my gosh, we're in China. It was just so far beyond, what he was told was possible. We offered this trip at no expense to families. So we fundraised for it, we got some grant money, we found volunteers to chaperone, and one of the students is homeless. And all of our students, were invited to come, regardless of financial ability. And that's part of how we do our school. Because if we're asking families to pay money, then all of a sudden we have the haves and the have-nots. All the students had spending money, whether or not their family could afford that. One of the families worked really hard and strapped together $10 to send for their kid. And we found another 140 in donations so that he could go shopping and buy gifts for his family and his teacher and things like that. Because the experience of bartering, it's a skill that I did not learn growing up. And now all of our graduating 8th graders who went on the trip know how to barter, and they're very proud. Yeah, and many thanks to Crystal for helping teach that, because it's not my strength. So those are just a few of the opportunities that small schools can offer. Okay, so a little bit about our school and its values. My first year, I brought in restorative practice, which is something I am really passionate about. When a child makes a mistake, I think of it as an opportunity to learn and grow. And so an example of how a restorative circle would work, 80% of restorative practice in schools is just creating a sense of community, doing daily circles, building relationships. Because really relationships are the foundation that all of learning happens on. In a small school, we have the opportunity to really invest in those relationships. So in the restorative practice model, we do our daily circles, but then when there's a conflict, we have a very specific way of working through it. So for example, last year we had 2 second grade girls that were really upset with each other, and they were pushing each other. This is not allowed. So we did a circle. They came to the office, and a big rose quartz rock. We put that in the middle of the table. We had a little talking stick. And the people get to share, what were you thinking when you realized, or what were you thinking when you pushed her? What have you thought about since? Who was affected by what you did? And what do you need to do to restore balance? And then whoever was harmed has the opportunity to share. When you realized what was happening, when you realized she was going to push you, what did you think in that moment? What have you thought about since? What was the hardest part about this for you? And what do you need for there to be a balance restored? And the students get to listen to each other and really understand the impact of what they did and how it impacted other people. And then together, they work together to make agreements. So in that particular case, rather than them getting, mandated attention or whatever the punitive approach of discipline is, I don't know what it is because we don't do it, they talked about their relationship and how their parents weren't letting them play together, and how they weren't allowed to go over to each other's houses anymore. One of them was moving, and how sad they were about the changes in their friendship, and how this was kind of an outcropping of that frustration. And then they worked together and they agreed to make a poster about keeping your hands and feet to yourself. So they could put that up in their classroom because they had been poor role models, and they wanted to do something not just to repair their relationship with each other, but to repair the culture of their classroom where it came place. And they were so proud to come and show me that poster when they were done, and then to share it with their class. So that's an example of how restorative practice works. So our first year, we got everyone, other than our cook, I wasn't able to get her in there, but everyone else at our school got trained in restorative practice and how to run circles. So our next year, our theme was mindfulness. So my first year at Peninsula, I realized there are a lot of kids with trauma in our school district. When you have multi-generational poverty, there's a lot of stuff that can come with that. And so I noticed some of our kids were getting in trouble because they have trauma, and they were responding from a place of trauma. Maybe a teacher got really close to them, and it reminded them of a time where something happened that didn't feel safe. And so then they acted out. But I don't want to get kids in trouble for having trauma. And so we decided to bring mindfulness to our school and focus on social emotional learning and trauma-informed practice. So we spent an entire year focusing on that, teaching kids how to self-regulate, how to check in with themselves and notice, am I feeling tired and lethargic? I know how to put myself back in. Or am I feeling really, really highly energized? How do I calm myself down? So that kids can find their optimal learning zone. And one of the things we did that year was we built a labyrinth on campus. So here's a picture from our opening ribbon cutting for our labyrinth. For those who have never walked a labyrinth, it is a very centering experience. We walk them silently and slowly, and it's a path where there are no wrong turns. We walk all the way to the center. In the center, there's a spot where you can sit. We can have circles, restorative circles in that, and then we slowly and quietly walk out. And this is a tool that students use. If they're in class, some kids can do mindfulness by just kind of sitting and breathing. Some kids need to move, and the walking labyrinth is an opportunity for the kids that need to move to find that centered place. During state testing is a time where kids really use it a lot. They take a break, they go walk the labyrinth, and they go back in and keep testing. And it's also right outside my office window. And so if I'm noticing who's using the labyrinth, and if a kid uses the labyrinth 3 times in a day, I know to go out and walk the labyrinth with them and spend a little time together, see what's going on for them. So then our next year, we started to look at equity, social justice. We live in a world where there's plenty of kids, and we don't want our school to be that place. So we started to study racism in this country and how it was created over about a 100-year period of time in the early founding of our country to keep poor white people from allying with slaves in the Native population. And the way that that was created in our culture was very, very specific. And as we started unpacking that with our students, we started to look at whose land are we on, whose ancestral land are we on. All of our students, kindergarten through 8th grade, know that they're on the ancestral land of the Leon people. We bring in people from local tribes, we do language lessons, we learn about a range of diversity that we don't necessarily have on the peninsula. So for example, we don't have a lot of racial diversity in Samoa. So every month we bring in people from our community who are leaders in our community, who are members of different ethnic groups or cultural groups, to read to our kids, so that our kids get to have opportunities to have role models from a range of places, so that kids can really see a future for themselves if they're the only African American student in their class, for example. There's a lot I could say about our ongoing equity work, but in the interest of wrapping up, I want to talk a little bit about ways to support Peninsula School. So one thing is, if you have an iPad lying around your house that you like never use that somebody gave to you, we could totally use it. So we definitely take donations of old laptops and things like that that are functioning. We have one-to-one technology at our school. Every kid has their own special device, computer, to make learning as smooth and accessible as possible, because they don't all have internet at home. Also, we have this dream for a van. So I just want to mention one thing about field trips. My first year there, we took a field trip to the Morris Grave Museum, and there was a 9-year-old, and we walked up and he goes, "Oh, Principal Doolan, do you see that?" And he pointed to the staircase that goes up to the 2nd floor. And I said, yeah, I see it. And he goes, "That's called a staircase. People use it when there isn't an elevator. Did you know that?" And I said, yes. Yes, I do that. And in my mind, I said, we're going on more field trips. Because in Samoa, we don't have a lot of staircases. And a lot of our students, they don't get off the peninsula very much. And so just taking a field trip to the Arcata Plaza and taking a walk is a huge thing. But the bus is really expensive. And so we're looking at getting a 10-person van. This is an ongoing fundraising effort for us. We could have our own bus route. We have a teacher who's willing to be our bus driver. And we could have a little bus that we pick up our kids in the morning so that they're not on the big fat bus with the high schoolers, which can be really dysregulating for the kids. And then we have a little bus where we can take classes on field trips to the Redwoods, field trips to the marsh, things like that. Our field trip fund. And then garden improvements. I want to give a shout out to our garden and the Rotarians who are supporting us in redoing our garden, whether you know it or not. It's an amazing garden and it needs some love. The fence could be fixed up a little, and the boxes that we grow things in could be improved a bit. We want our students to be able to harvest herbs in the morning for our cook. We have a cook who makes all of our meals, to cook into our eggs and things like that. We want to grow some winter vegetables. So please come out and volunteer in our garden and help make it a functional space for us. I really appreciate your having me here. I was hoping I would have time for Q&A, but I've gone over. So email me, talk to me after. Thank you so much for supporting us in our garden project, and thank you for having me come and speak a little about Peninsula School today. Check out our website.